How's it going, Star Seekers? Welcome back to Star or Shovelware. My name's Luke, and today on the channel we're going to be taking a look at Takeoff, the flight simulator, which, if you haven't already guessed, is a flight simulation game in which you get to fly in a variety of planes, partake in over 50 different missions, and travel the globe as you strive to become the best pilot in the universe. Well, maybe that last statement was a slight exaggeration, but the Switch is severely lacking in quality flight simulators, so let's take a look at this one, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more. So when it comes to a storyline, to be honest, this game really doesn't have one as such, but you begin your life as a pilot under the tutorship of Captain Birdseye here. After flying a few missions and getting a bit of experience behind the yoke, he eventually decides he's had enough of the pilot's life and so he's retiring, and in a rather unexpected turn of events, he's leaving his airline company tier, which for some reason doesn't actually have any aircraft in its fleet, but more on that later. Beyond this though, there's nothing else plot-wise, though the game's missions do set up some story-like scenarios for you to play through, for example sending you to assist local law enforcement and chase down a local fugitive. But to be honest, this is all just minor stuff, and I'd say in this instance, the game could have probably done with more of a storyline to bolster its gameplay. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I've played a couple of flight simulators on the Switch, all of which have been pretty shite, and so regardless of whatever issues this game may have, I'd say that for the time being it's probably the best flight simulator you're getting on the Switch. Now, upon starting the game, you'll get to run through a simple tutorial mission which teaches you the game's control scheme, and being a mobile port, this is nowhere near as complex as something like Microsoft Flight Simulator. We use our ZL and ZR bumpers to set our power, pitch and roll with the left thumbstick while the right controls our camera, and can use the trigger buttons to control our yaw, and the game runs us through the takeoff procedure and a bit of flying through checkpoints. In general, the game's controls feel okay with this one, though you can't roll your aircraft beyond a certain point, which makes turning feel very slow and means you can't perform barrel rolls or any other tricks, and landing takes forever as you have to wait for your aircraft to come to a complete stop and have no brakes to speed this up. Now, following this we get into the game proper and get a couple of different game modes, the first of those being the campaign, and I'll come out and say right now that the biggest problem with Takeoff Flight Simulator is the fact that it's a mobile port, and the mobile version is free to play, which almost always means one thing: microtransactions. Thankfully, these are gone from the Switch port, but still left in place are all the other things which usually come with these to encourage a purchase, and the first of these is that there's a levelling system. Now, the campaign itself is broken down into groups of missions, with most requiring you to be a certain level to access. Within the groups, each mission also has a level requirement, and although the starter missions provide enough XP to level up and access them one after another, I can imagine that the later missions don't, and thus ensures the grind of the game. Now, the starter missions act more like an extended tutorial than anything else, and give you a bit of taste as to what to expect from the rest of the game. They cover flying and landing your plane in both normal and adverse weather conditions where the wind makes it a little more tricky, and flying and landing your plane when it's damaged, which force you to use your rudder to turn when your wings are damaged, or in the case of a damaged engine, glide your way to the ground, and both of these add some variety and provide a decent level of challenge. Each time you complete a mission, you're rewarded with XP which goes towards levelling you up, cash which can be used to purchase new planes as well as upgrades and new paint jobs for them, and finally air miles, which we'll get onto shortly. And as I said before, levelling up unlocks new missions, but herein lies the game's second problem, also related to its mobile routes. Even though you gain access to these new mission types, you still have to buy the actual aircraft in order to fly them, and the aircraft in the game aren't cheap, and so again it's back to the grindstone. Now, you can earn cash in the game in one of two ways, firstly by replaying previous missions over and over, or secondly by heading into the game's free fly mode. In this mode you're able to take off and fly around the Hawaiian Islands in any of the aircrafts that you own, but you can also take on jobs requiring you to fly from one Hawaiian airport to another transporting goods. The only issue with this is that you need to actually fly to the departure airport and land on its runway before you can start the mission, and when you're flying a tiny prop plane this takes a lifetime, so your only choice is to try and find a mission which starts at the same airport that you do. Once you've done this, the job will then start and you'll automatically switch into the right aircraft for the job, and then it's just a case of flying the thousands of meters to the destination airport and landing there to complete the mission, after which you'll be rewarded with a hefty sum of cash, XP and air miles. Now the final gameplay element to talk about comes when you reach level 10 and Captain Birdseye hands over control of his airline to you, which isn't much of an airline since it doesn't have any planes at all, and purchasing even the smallest one for your fleet will cost you around 150k. Now while you might expect the running of your airline to involve some kind of management sim mechanics, in actuality this element of the game was really just intended to be a form of passive income for people playing the mobile version, with even its shortest flights taking around 2 hours in real time. Now while you don't actually perform the flights yourself, you can choose to manually take off and land your aircraft, and though this is hardly worth the time or effort, it's actually the only way to see any of the famous airports or cities that the game's eShop description mentions. Oh look, there's London, the largest and most popular tourist destination in England, home to Big Ben, and there he is now, the old bastard, still ticking away. And wow, now we're in Paris, the city of love, baguettes and great wine, with the hottest attraction here being the Eiffel Tower, which you can see off there in the distance. Shall we take a closer look? Oh wait, we can't, because the game won't let us, and after several warnings we'll fail the mission and are then kicked back out to the main menu. So yeah, actual sightseeing of the famous locations is extremely limited, and your airline is actually based in Germany, meaning in order to see locations like Japan and America, you'll have to fork out for bigger aircraft to be able to cover larger distances, which are also extortionate. So overall, Takeoff Flight Simulator isn't a bad game, and like I said, it's probably your best option for a flight sim on the Switch. But as with other mobile ports, the developer has failed to reduce the grind that is synonymous with free-to-play microtransaction fueled games, and so getting to the good stuff involves a lot of grinding. While the missions themselves aren't bad and offer a decent amount of variety, in terms of sightseeing you're really just limited to the islands of Hawaii, and the jobs in free fly mode offer very little of interest, with the game's most challenging aspects probably being its landing sequences. All in all, I'd say the game does have a decent amount of content to keep you occupied, but I certainly wouldn't say it's worth the $15 asking price, especially because of the grindiness and the fact that it's free to play on mobile. So visually then, of all the flight sims I've played on the Switch, Takeoff has been the best looking one, though I'm not quite sure its eShop screenshots are 100% legitimate. The Hawaiian Islands have a decent amount of accuracy to them, with me actually being able to identify Honolulu's Diamond Head volcano, and the aircraft themselves all look pretty good, with a decent level of detail to them. On the audio side of things, the game doesn't sound too bad. There's only so much you can do when it comes to making jet engines and propellers sound good, but of what there is decent, and music wise the game contains none other than at the main menu, which again is okay but somewhat insignificant. So Takeoff Flight Simulator performs pretty well on the Switch. I experienced a couple of minor frame rate drops, but nothing serious, and it certainly runs better than Pixar's sorry attempt at a flight sim. When it comes to the game's issues, these mainly boil down to it being a mobile port, and still feeling like a mobile game with its simple control scheme and grindy gameplay. I totally understand giving the player something to work towards, but the pricing on some of the aircraft is just ridiculous, and there's simply just not enough variety when it comes to the game's destinations or job types to make the grind enjoyable. Granted, the missions are alright, but again these shouldn't have been locked behind a level barrier, and I think you should also get at least one plane unlocked for free with them, instead of having to first buy a plane before you can actually fly them. When it comes down to it though, this is about as good as you're getting from the Switch in terms of a flight sim. It's not bad, but it's no Microsoft Flight Sim, and when it comes down to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Takeoff the Flight Simulator 2 out of 5 stars. If you're desperate to play a flight sim on the Switch, then Takeoff is probably your best option, though for what you get I'd say it's seriously overpriced, and be prepared for a real grind with this one. And so that's it for this review of Takeoff the Flight Simulator on the Nintendo Switch. If it helped you out, make sure to hit that like button, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, and if you enjoy my content and are looking for more Switch reviews, then don't forget to subscribe. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.